This episode is brought to you by Sterling Soap Company. How often do you think about your soap? Well, if you answered, not much, maybe you should. You see, a lot of what passes for soap in stores is technically not soap, according to the FDA's definition. It's full of lab-created chemicals and detergents because, well, it's cheaper to make. Now, what if you could buy natural soap made from natural ingredients like tallow, palm oil, coconut oil, and scented with essential oils, and for just a little more than you'd pay for grocery store soap? Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a wide variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, and cologne, there's a product and a scent for just about everybody. Check them out for yourself at sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com.
What's up, sports history fan? Dana Augusta here of the Historically Speaking Sports Podcast. Ever wish you can get behind-the-scenes access to the Hockey Hall of Fame and dive into the untold stories that shaped the game? Then you need to check out Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories Part 2 by Eric Zweig. Eric's latest book is packed with wild, unexpected tales from epic rivalries and game-changing moments to quirky incidents like polo injuries and snowblower mishaps. Eric Zweig's impeccable research and passion for the sport of hockey will whisk you through the NHL's early years, the origins of the Three Stars tradition, and how hockey first hit the airwaves. Plus, you get fresh takes on legends like Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Hall, and Joe Sakic. Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2 is available now wherever you get your books. Grab your copy and get ready to dive deep into the heart of the game.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to award-winning Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I am your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast where we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old school basketball to a new school audience, and today we bring you the story of the 2008 Boston Celtics. Specifically, we are sharing the story of how that team was put together. We all know that the 2008 Boston Celtics won the championship in 6 games over my beloved Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, if the Lakers are going to lose in the NBA Finals, I would rather that they lose to anyone else but the Boston Celtics. As a lifelong diehard Lakers fan, I carry a lot of animosity toward the Boston Celtics, the fierce rival of the Lakers. However, I am able to put my feelings aside to bring you episodes that feature members of the Celtics organization. I still consider myself a basketball historian at heart, and I want to bring you stories as accurately as possible. I have a deep respect for the Celtics organization and what it has accomplished. I mean, a team does not win 18 NBA championships by accident. They are a well-run organization that has always had great leadership from the top and are able to compete at a very high level more often than not. But the part of the story that I want to focus on is the summer of 2007, when general manager Danny Ainge put the whole team together by uniting Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen with Paul Pierce, who was already in Boston, but struggling for years with underperforming teams. The job that Danny Ainge did that summer was nothing short of a masterclass on team building and savvy trading. Now, I do want to take a moment to discuss the job of the general manager. In the United States and Canada, the job of the general manager is the person who hires the coaching staff and brings in players through the trades, draft picks, and the signing of free agents. In international football like England's Premier League, the same position would be called team director. In F1 auto racing, that same position would be called team principal. In other words, the general manager is the person responsible for putting together the team of coaches and players. In the summer of 2007, that job for the Celtics belonged to Danny Ainge, a former Celtics player who was the starting shooting guard during the Larry Bird days in the 1980s. As the summer of 2007 rolled around, the Celtics had just had 2 losing seasons in a row. In fact, the Celtics had just had the second worst record in the entire league with only 24 wins against 58 losses. Something had to be done and done quickly. That was the pressure that Danny Ainge was under. The Celtics had a tradition of winning, and Ainge was letting the people of Boston down by putting out a losing team 2 years in a row. But how would he rebuild the team with the constraints of the salary cap? In the NBA, there is a salary cap or team salary limit, which says that every team is allowed to spend only a certain amount of money in player salaries. Now, there are a few exceptions where a team can exceed the limit if the situation falls into a handful of allowed exceptions. For that season of 2007-2008, the NBA salary cap was $55.6 million. That is all he could spend on the entire group of players. Again, there were a few exceptions that allowed Ainge and the Celtics to go over that limit, and Ainge had to get creative to exploit every single one of those exceptions. Ainge had his eyes on 2 players that he felt could completely transform the team from the second worst in the league into a championship contender. He had his eyes on Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen, 2 all-star players who were playing for the Minnesota Timberwolves and Seattle Supersonics respectively. But bringing them in was much easier said than done. Making trades where all-star players are involved can be very difficult because those are the highest earning players. They come with huge salaries, and moving around very large contracts can be tricky when you consider the salary cap. It is much easier to trade small contracts than it is to trade large contracts because of the financial implications for the teams involved. So Danny Ainge got in contact with his counterpart with the Seattle Supersonics, Sam Presti, to start discussing the possibility of trading Ray Allen from the Sonics to the Celtics. Who would the Sonics want in return? What could be considered an equitable trade? What Ainge knew was that the Sonics had just been purchased by a new group of owners based out of Oklahoma, and that the new owners wanted to relocate the team to Oklahoma City. As part of that plan, the Sonics were trying to get rid of all of their players with large contracts. In other words, the Sonics were trying to fill the team with a bunch of small contracts, which means flexibility in future trading. Sam Presti knew that the team was about to relocate to Oklahoma City, and he had big ideas and was planning on basically rebuilding the team from the ground up. That meant getting rid of their existing players. The Sonics had just let all-star Rashard Lewis leave for the Orlando Magic as a free agent, leaving them with just one large contract to get rid of, which was Ray Allen's contract. After the discussions went back and forth, the Sonics traded Ray Allen to the Celtics in exchange for Wally Szczerbiak. Now, no offense to Szczerbiak. I mean, the guy did have one All-Star appearance and was known to be a good shooter, but the Sonics did not want Szczerbiak because of his basketball skills as much as they wanted his contract. Szczerbiak only had 1 year left in his contract, which meant that his salary would soon come off the payroll, and the team could use that money to sign other players. And that was the big picture that Sam Presti was after. He wanted financial flexibility to rebuild the team, and Szczerbiak's contract was the flexibility that he needed. Now, here was the rest of the trade. The Celtics also got incoming rookie Glenn Big Baby Davis. As for the Sonics, in addition to Szczerbiak, they also received Delonte West and incoming rookie Jeff Green. So with that move, the Celtics announced the acquisition of Ray Allen to go along with Paul Pierce. That was a major upgrade for the Celtics and put them back into playoff contention. But Danny Ainge was not done. He still had to get Kevin Garnett, and that would be much more difficult. So this is a good place to take a break, and I'll be right back with the rest of the story of how Danny Ainge completely rebuilt the Celtics over a single summer.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row One, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings your sports history to life anywhere. The Row One gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row One shop, check out the thousands more of unique unique items with a retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long-sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row 1 catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row 1 Pictorium Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.
Hello, sports history fans. I'm Ross from the podcast Pigskin Tales. You're about to jump into another thrilling sports history moment, but first, let's dive into today's sponsor, just in time for the holiday season. Introducing Art of Words, the brainchild of word artist Dan Duffy from Philadelphia. Dan meticulously crafts stunning images by handwriting relevant words from some of the greatest sports moments in time. These unique, budget-friendly illustrations are the perfect gift, sparking cherished memories and capturing hearts. Choose from city skylines, sports, history, and musicians to find a piece for everyone. And here's the exciting part. For that sports fanatic in your life, gift them a piece of their favorite team or player's history. Art of Words tells a compelling story. Explore collegiate stadiums, each meticulously crafted with every football victory etched into words. Or venture into baseball stadiums, handwritten with every player from the team's illustrious history. My favorite on the site is Bryce Harper 2021 MVP year. Because I'm a big stats guy, I think that's one of the coolest things ever. Check it out. Don't wait. Order a print today for yourself and your loved one this holiday season. Transform your wall into a gallery of captivating art and surprise your family and friends with a print of their own. Use code SHN15 at artofwords.com for a 15% discount on your order in November and December. Visit Art of Words, where words magically transform into stunning art, evoking cherished memories and touching the hearts of those who you care about. Again, use the code SHN15 for 15% off at artofwords.com.
Welcome back to the show, and let us continue with the story of the 2008 Boston Celtics and how the team was put together by general manager Danny Ainge. Prior to the break, I shared how the Celtics were able to get Ray Allen to the Celtics to play alongside Paul Pierce. But now, Danny Ainge had to figure out a way to bring in Kevin Garnett, and that was going to be much more difficult. Kevin Garnett had the largest contract in the NBA at the time, and that was going to be a very difficult thing to move. You see, the NBA has a rule that says that the total annual salaries of the players being traded have to be within 20% of the other group of players going in the other direction. And here is what I mean. Kevin Garnett was making $8 million that year. That means that the total amount of annual salaries that the Celtics were going to send in return had to be within 20% of $8 million, which means that the Celtics would have to send back a whole bunch of players whose annual salaries added up to a number within 20% of $8 million. This rule prevents teams from sending highly paid all-star players to another team for some low-paid bench player. The total salaries being exchanged have to be relatively balanced, which typically means that the talent of those players is also relatively balanced. All right, so let's keep going with the story. Minnesota was willing to send Garnett to the Celtics, but they wanted a whole bunch of players in return. Now this is where relationships make a difference. The general manager of the Timberwolves at the time was Minnesota native Kevin McHale, the former Celtics Hall of Famer and teammate of Danny Ainge during the 1980s. The two general managers won championships together and had a deep friendship that went back over 20 years. They knew that they could be honest with each other and trust that the other was playing fair. The phone calls going back and forth were long and lasted nearly the entire summer. Each team put their offers on the table, but they could not complete the agreement. The Timberwolves insisted that Rajon Rondo of the Celtics be part of the deal. The Timberwolves needed a point guard and they liked what they saw in Rondo. The Celtics said no way. They had to keep Rondo. They knew that they had a high-quality point guard and they were going to need him to distribute the ball to Pierce, Allen, and hopefully Garnett. That was the one sticking point in the negotiations. Things had come to a standstill. The two general managers had taken it as far as they could go. They set up a call for the two owners to speak to each other, since owners have the final say on anything involving their teams. The Timberwolves reiterated their demand that Rondo be part of the deal. The Celtics offered Sebastian Telfair instead, another point guard on the Celtics. What the Timberwolves did not really know is that the Celtics really wanted to get rid of Telfair anyway, because he had been arrested a couple of times in the previous year for illegal possession of a handgun. The Celtics had no intention of ever playing him again. The Timberwolves finally gave in and accepted Telfair instead of Rondo as part of the deal. So here is how it went down. The Celtics received Kevin Garnett and only Kevin Garnett. The Timberwolves received Al Jefferson, Theo Ratliff, Ryan Gomes, Gerald Green, Sebastian Telfair, and 2 future first-round draft picks. In total, that was 7 players for Kevin Garnett. That is when the Celtics had their famous press conference where they announced their new Big Three of Garnett, Allen, and Pierce. They were a team reborn with new possibilities and were an instant championship contender. However, the Celtics had practically depleted their roster of players. Between both trades, they gave away 7 active players and received back only 2, albeit they were 2 All-Stars and future Hall of Famers. But now, Danny Ainge had to rebuild a whole new team around the Big Three. Now, in addition to Paul Pierce and Rajon Rondo, the only other players to remain on the Celtics during that summer was Tony Allen, Kendrick Perkins, Leon Poe, and the White Mamba, Brian Scalabrine. That gave the Celtics a total of 8 players. Now this is where Danny Ainge worked even more magic. He was able to add to the team James Posey, Sam Cassell, PJ Brown, Scott Pollard, and the previously mentioned incoming rookie Glenn Davis. Ainge used every exception available to him to bring in those players and fill out his roster. Now, with the new roster, Danny Ainge had put together probably the strongest Celtics team since he himself was a player playing alongside Larry Bird. The 2008 Celtics won a league-best 66 games and steamrolled their way through the playoffs, famously defeating the LA Lakers by 39 points in Game 6 of the NBA Finals that year to capture the team's 17th championship. What made that summer so awe-inspiring is that Danny Ainge was able to pull off all of that action while 29 other teams were also trying to do everything they could to make their teams at the best it could be to win a championship. Playing professional sports is a zero-sum game. For one team to win a championship, it means that the other 29 teams cannot win it. The league can never have 2 champions. Every summer, nearly every NBA team is after the best trades, the best draft picks, and the best free agents in an effort to take home that trophy at the end of the season. Everyone is actively working against each other to make that happen. And when the smoke cleared, it was the Celtics that stood atop the mountain. Well done for Danny Ainge, but the big picture of this story is that it is incredibly difficult to build a championship team. The NBA landscape is ever changing as players get older or get injured. In other words, there are so many moving parts to a professional basketball team that it almost seems like a miracle that any team can win it at all. Everything has to go right for a championship, and that is hard to control. Well, that does it for today. That is our story of the 2008 Boston Celtics and how they were able to rebuild themselves in a single summer and win a championship. Join us next time when we share another story from basketball history. That's next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. And check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast. There you will find shorter historical posts, and I'll also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories from the past. Take care, and see you soon.
The heel gets the heat. The babyface gets the cheers. But the jobber gets, well, the job done. And speaking of jobbers, Barry Horowitz wasn't there to win titles. He was there to build them. By selling every move, every storyline, and every new star that stepped into the ring. He was the secret sauce. And now, He's the headline in his new book titled Wrestling is My Gimmick, My Life on the Wrong Side of the 3 Count. This memoir is a deep dive into wrestling's most underrated position and the man who made it an art form. Whether you're a fan of wrestling, a fan of sports history, or just love a great story, this book is for you. Again, that's Wrestling is My Gimmick by Barry Horowitz. Grab your copy today before the count strikes 3.